On First of the Best, we get to review the often overlooked or forgotten first film by some of cinema's best directors. We'll discuss how these legendary directors got their first opportunities to make their mark in cinema. These are the movies they cut their teeth and learned the filmmaking ropes of Hollywood. We'll take a look at how these filmmakers' careers evolved from here, as well as their signature style, cinematic trademarks, and thematic ideas that may have been prevalent right from their very first chance in the director's chair. So join Cinema Gulp in an appreciation for filmmakers that once you get a taste, we know you'll say,
Once it hits your lips, it's so good!
Welcome to Cinema Gulp, everybody, and happy start to the Halloween season. I'm Ben.
And I'm John, and for this Halloween edition of First of the Best, we decided to do one of the best horror directors out there, John Carpenter.
And what's his first movie, John?
His first movie, Dark Star.
Now, is it his first movie? I think we have to assume it is.
It's his first film. It's a student film, but it's his first. It's not feature length in the way that we think of it. I guess it's 68 minutes. There is a longer cut to this movie.
Don't watch the longer one.
Don't watch the shorter one. I don't know.
It just stopped. It just stopped.
Great. When you hear talk about John Carpenter or anything surrounding John Carpenter's life or career, you hear about Dark Star and you hear about some of the stuff that went on during the making of it. A little bit of a falling out he had with Dan O'Bannon, the guy he pretty much made this with. They were USC film students, and they got the itch to make this sci-fi thing, and I think O'Bannon used his sense of comedy to kind of turn it into a comedy where Carpenter wanted to kind of showcase. I think Carpenter ends up looking better than O'Bannon by the end of this.
Definitely.
Because
he's not on camera, for one.
Well, that's one thing, but it does showcase some good filmmaking techniques. And John, it's kind of a hard movie to critique because is it ever taking itself seriously? It's hard to tell if you're laughing at something or with it because they kind of flip-flop on the goofiness and the humor. I'm just assuming it's all big slapstick comedy in space.
Get back in there. Come on.
I mean, it's got a fucking beach ball as an alien, and they don't even try to cover the creases of the blown-up beach ball.
No.
I'm disappointed in it because I wanted to have more fun for the obvious reasons. For it's a piece of shit, it's stupid, it's goofy. Problem is it's competently shot, and like there's some really inventive, creative techniques going on in it.
This just, this really feels like a student film, but a really good effort by, if you're saying that this is a no-budget kind of production by a bunch of people who have never been able to do work on this kind of level before, put together. Again, it's not feature length, but there's enough shot and enough put into this. But man, is it a movie? Because it has no plot. I guess my thing with this movie, knowing about it, and the reason why I've always been interested in seeing it was because I'm a huge Alien fan. So I always knew that there's some inspiration in this film for the film Alien. So I've always been interested to see, well, what was that? And Dan O'Bannon is the writer of Alien. He wrote and stars and edits this film and does none of those things well. You do see some of the threads and kind of little moments in this film that make their way into Alien. There is some of that. Creature design, definitely not one of them. The beach ball, that was another reason, I guess, that I had always heard about, you gotta see Dark Star for how silly this beach ball as a monster comes across. And it was poorly done, and you said that, you see the creases and there's just these little spray paint patches on it. It looks as bad as it could. It's not in the movie all that much.
It's the best character in the movie.
I thought it was going to be the movie, though, that this movie was essentially Alien with a really bad, poorly done creature. It's kind of just this one segment that really goes on for way, 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 way. It's a first effort, so who knows what they were putting their focus on. They obviously didn't put their focus on making sure that we can distinguish the characters, which would have been easy. Just ask someone to not have a beard. Ask someone to not have quite the same fuzzy hairdo. It was really hard. There's only 4 characters, and it was hard to tell who you were watching from scene to scene. Once we settled in knowing, okay, it's not going to be like Alien, and it doesn't take itself serious. It really is apparently a comedy, which, like John Carpenter, you don't think of comedy for John Carpenter's films really at all. The jokes, if you can call them that, fall super flat.
Fuck yeah.
But then at the end, there's just such ridiculous stuff going on to wrap this movie up that we did chuckle a couple times.
Yeah.
So it did find a way to make us laugh. And not always just because of how bad it was or how poorly done something like the beach ball is. I was laughing at, like, I don't expect in a student film of this caliber to have well done effects, even for 1974, to the level of effects to even be something worth giving a crap about. But there was moments that looked like I was watching like Sesame Street.
When you're talking about the end where it just fucking flat out goes off the rails, the way like our two survive, so the Dark Star blows up and there's one guy left who's just floating around, and another guy who's floating really fast, and all of a sudden one guy sees this like phoenix coming towards him. He's like, oh, this is like a comet, I'm gonna join it and blend in with the ether, and then I'm blue, and then he just disappears. And then the other guy just surfboards a piece of the Dark Star into a planet and blows up. To me, that's like kids.
That part was awesome.
To me, that's like kids going, fuck it, we don't know what to do.
Yeah. As you pointed out, the surfing into the planet was set up. That was foreshadowed in the film.
I used to surf a lot, Talby. I used to be a great surfer.
That ending was actually great. I enjoyed that.
Everybody dies. Spoilers.
Well, you know what? That's what I noticed with watching a lot of Carpenter's films for this little series we were doing. All of his films end with everybody dying, or the evil finding a way to still survive, not necessarily always winning, out and out winning the challenge of the film or whatever. I mean, Michael Myers isn't the winner, but he survives. And it happens in so many of his movies, definitely most of his best movies.
Big Trouble in Little China.
Big Trouble. The monster's still on the back of the truck at the end. You know, just little moments like that. Kind of those little Carrie moment where the hand comes back out. Carrie's not his film, but
Big Trouble
that
in
kind
China.
of thing. Just that little wrap up of like, oh, the evil is still alive, and it's almost every single one of his movies. This guy is like a nihilist, I think.
There's no way to name a happy ending of a Carpenter movie. Big Trouble in Little China is the closest to it because they defeat the bad guy. It wraps up. You get the guy back with the girl. But then there's that one thing at the end, which you can take or leave what that means.
Of like the monster's still there. I don't know. Let's talk about the first time we got to hear a John Carpenter score. This was the first time he put his music to a movie, and you know it still worked. John Carpenter never misses when it comes to.
It was the best thing about the movie.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
I loved the music in this movie. Did it fit in a lot of the scenes? Not so much when they were trying to go for comedy stuff. Where it really hit its stride was when you get introduced to the beach ball aliens and they're trying to give off a creepiness. That's when you and I first were like, oh, there's the John Carpenter score. Now it's coming. And the whole trek you get with him going through the corridors looking for the beach ball for reasons. And that's when the Carpenter score really builds up. Now, when they try to mix it with some of the humor stuff, you're like, it doesn't really make sense because he didn't change his tone or pitch of music. It never got goofy, the music.
Yeah, and it worked way better than that elevator music that they're playing.
Yeah,
that extended
cut.
A bit of an inspiration for something in Alien, potentially. There's a captain of this ship that had died, I think, from sitting in a seat that had some faulty wiring and got electrocuted. I think that's what I heard happened.
Yep.
And they put him on ice. We find this out later in the movie that he's been frozen, and they still have some kind of connections to his brain so they can talk to him and communicate to him. And I felt it seemed very much like the scene with Ash after his head's been knocked off in Alien, and they have to try to rewire him and ask him questions to find out what the hell's going on. It was very similar to that kind of scene. They have this problem in Dark Star. I guess they are bombers who go through the galaxy and clear the galaxy of planets that are unstable, that potentially might blow up or something.
Yep.
So they have these bombs that they have to talk to like they're people before they drop them. They ask them, how long do you have before you're going to blow up? And then in the time they're waiting before they blow up, they just have normal conversations with these bombs. It's the weirdest thing. And
it's some of the funniest shit.
What concrete evidence do you have that you exist?
Well, I think
Therefore, I am.
The attempt of this movie, I thought, was more of saying, let's make 2001 a comedy. Not,
Yeah.
obviously Alien didn't exist, so it wasn't an attempt to make anything with Alien. That comes later. But this did feel like maybe, hey, we've seen that 2001, we were blown away. What could we do similar, but let's make it a comedy. So that's kind of what I got. And in the end, you do have this kind of AI, this bomb that's thinking for itself, that's saying, I need to blow up because my detonation time is coming. You've only got minutes. I'm gonna blow up even though I'm stuck to the ship. There's the ball screwed something up. It's a comedy of errors. I guess the ball did get involved where it screwed something up and made this bomb not want to detach from the ship. So one of the guys has to go out and have this whole conversation with it and get philosophical with it and give it a question to ponder, so it'll spend time pondering that question rather than continuing to detonate. So that was your Dark Star. Not very entertaining, but I'm glad we got a chance to check it out and see the roots for John Carpenter's career. Let's talk more about that, because that's the good stuff.
That's the thing. Like, the roots are there, and the opening reveal shot, the sort of truck back where you first see your three characters. That's an interesting shot because everyone's arm is extending as their bodies are coming into frame. I thought that was a really well framed shot, really cool shot. If we want to pivot to what I think is his first grand movie with a theatrical release, something he wrote, directed, edited, and scored, which is Assault on Precinct 13, one of my favorite movies of his. A movie I saw a long time ago. I own it. Moments in that movie that people study because it's an exercise in beats to frames, like the way he edits music and sound to how he conducts his shots. Because this is like a Rio Bravo take, basically.
He's a Howard Hawks fan.
Yeah.
And he wanted to make his own version.
And in the movie, it became a little controversial with the shooting of the girl at the beginning of it, but it's such
It does feel that way. That's a shocking moment.
It is very shocking, and it comes out of nowhere. This movie has such a great way of building tension, and thank God he edited this one, because I think that's what was missing from Dark Stars. He didn't do the editing for it, because the strength of this one is in the editing, and just the cool story of it. Like, there's no escaping this. There's nowhere to go. And the scene I was talking about is that Rio Bravo scene where people start coming in through the windows. And if you rewatch that scene, it's like cut, boom, shotgun, boom, like window break, boom, like, and it's just edit after edit. It's such a fun, cool fucking scene to watch from an editing and action and visual standpoint. I kind of love that movie. I think it's a great first, like, real big movie.
Yeah, I love that movie too. I think it took me a while to get around to finally see that one. Everyone some people think Halloween is his first movie.
Yeah.
But Assault on Precinct 13 is a full-fledged movie. It's still kind of an independent production, but it's got enough of a budget and some performances by real actors, which you don't get in this Dark Star. Just getting that elevated production value and performances steps that movie up a ton. I've seen Assault on Precinct 13 2 or 3 times now, and it gets better every time. The score is great. It's really one of his best. Like his early work, I like all of his scores, but his first 3 or 4, like all those earlier films, were excellent.
He has more iconic scores, but hands down, this is my favorite score of John Carpenter's. It's not even close. This movie has a long, close to 2-minute long credit sequence just of black. He used to do that. A lot of people did back in the day. Just names popping up in dark background text, and you hear the entire length of the theme song of this movie, and it just immediately raises the stakes before you even see a frame of footage. And I love the Thing score too, but there's so much of that mixed with Marconi that you don't really know what's his. And obviously people love Halloween. Underrated one is definitely Escape from New York. That's a really cool theme song.
Christine's another one that I really like. It's got when the headlights come on, it's all
He has everything, guys. He can do everything to make a movie.
His run in the 80s is pretty damn impressive. I don't know who else has a run of so many movies in a row that are just so damn entertaining. When you take it from Halloween, The Fog, Escape from New York, The Thing, Christine, every single one of those is a freaking awesome
movie. Don't forget Big Trouble in Little China.
Well, then you get Starman, Big Trouble in Little China,
And Prince of Darkness.
Prince of Darkness, and They Live. That's his run from 78 to 88.
How many
10-year
movies?
run.
Jesus
And
Christ.
every single one of those is totally rewatchable, awesome, freaking just 80s entertainment.
I love that he
is
was
the
doing
king of the 80s.
Big Trouble in Little China and Prince of Darkness at the same time. Mostly back to back, but overlap. And it shows because he has the same type of score. It almost sounds like the same music. He uses Wang.
Yeah.
There's a lot of similarities in the look of those two movies, and you could tell.
Through his career, he has brought a lot of cast back, and definitely
Kurt
similar-
Russell. Two girls from Halloween fall right over into The Fog.
Yeah.
Two girls with green eyes?
Yeah, he's got a lot of cast that he keeps bringing back all the way through all those 80s movies. But then also his crew. He's got, like, Dean Cundy works on a lot of those early 80s, late 70s, early 80s films. I want to say he did The Fog and Halloween.
If you look at Assault and then you look at Halloween and The Fog, they're very minimalist on so many things that they're like, they have these big driving forces and these big ideas, but they shrink down what they like. The Fog specifically, it's such a cool story, but you rarely see what is being talked about, and that's fine. It works in that regard. When you get to The Thing, it's the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Everything is there in excess,
Yes.
and like the grossness and the violence. That shit is legendary. And that's what makes the movie. I mean, it to me that might be his best directing job as far as like tension.
Yeah, because like you could take all of those amazing effects out of that movie and it would still be a really effective movie of paranoia and all of that stuff. So I think, as you're pointing out,
Like a whodunit.
Yeah, as a whodunit. His direction is probably the strongest in that film. In creating tension, creating all that doubt and everything like that. But thankfully, it has all those Rob Bottin effects just to amplify it and make it one of the coolest, awesome sci-fi horror movies ever.
That is very like Lovecraftian gore, where it's so out of this world that like a dog opens his mouth and like a flower comes out of it. You know, you're like,
what am I even looking at?
Yeah.
To your point of those first, I guess you were saying the first two as in like Halloween and The Fog being kind of this stripped down theater of the mind a bit.
It's
like,
more about what you don't see.
It's what you don't see, which he does such a good job. So yeah, it's kind of amazing to think that's the same guy who made this other film that is so explicit and showing you everything.
Yeah.
But it also works, like both ways that he approached those films totally worked when he got behind the camera and decided to approach it like that. So.
And he's really good with ensembles, because as much as you want to say that there's a main person, even in like something like Big Trouble in Little China, Jack
Very
Burton's
much an
not really
ensemble.
the main character. Like Wang, it's Wang's story pretty much.
Yeah.
You know, specifically The Thing. It's like, yeah, Kurt Russell's the star, but he doesn't really have more screen time than all the other guys.
Well, there's so many times in that movie where if they wanted to end it with him being the Thing, they play on could he be the Thing, yet we're watching him as supposed to be our protagonist.
Yeah, our
But
catalyst.
At any point, you could be like, he could be the Thing, so why is he my protagonist? You really don't know.
Yeah, I think people would have definitely given it some shit. Maybe us
If he
included.
turned out to be.
Because then you'd be like, that's an unreliable narrator. What was really going on in this movie? How did we see it from the perspective of the alien?
Yeah. I think The Fog is a perfect example of, the execution of The Fog isn't my favorite along like some of his other better made horror movies. Like as a horror director, I think he's done a better job with the other like standout horror films in his filmography. But I do enjoy The Fog, and what I really enjoy about The Fog is its story. I think it's a really creative ghost story. But I get a little lost with some of the side characters, like when you're talking about he does a great job with ensembles.
Yeah.
The performances aren't bad.
They're a little
but I think
separated in that
there's
one.
some like I don't follow that story but with the characters as well as I am interested in the story of the town and its lore and why these ghosts have returned and things like that. And it's a beautifully shot film and it does have fun moments. And after that great run of about 10 years, I guess, from 78 to 88.
What did it end on? It wasn't.
They Live.
They
in
Live.
88. He didn't do an 89. I believe it's 91, I think, is when he did Memoirs of an Invisible Man with Chevy Chase.
Not terrible.
Something I didn't get a chance to rewatch, so I don't really have much recollection of it.
Some good scenes.
Yeah. But then you get to 1994, which is his last great film, in my opinion.
Yes.
One that recently rewatching it, I've elevated it into like the top 4 or 5 favorite Carpenter films for me. In the Mouth of Madness.
Yes.
Which you mentioned Lovecraftian, and
It's got a lot of that.
I think Carpenter is a fan of Lovecraft, and it seems evident with what he put on display in The Thing. So this was a chance for him to kind of do more of that, and get even more into that Lovecraftian world. And I just think it's a great script.
Very cool.
I feel like it's got a little bit of a meta feel to it before Scream. In the same year as New Nightmare, whoever tries to claim that they were the first to be like a meta horror movie.
It was actually shot in 93, yeah.
This has a little bit of that aspect of playing on, like they mentioned Stephen King.
Kane's writing has been known to have an effect on his readers.
How this stuff is affecting the world and stuff. I just found that whole side of like Sam Neill, who does an amazing job. He's so good in this movie.
The whole movie hinges on his performance, basically.
Sam Neill's character by the end, I mean, maybe we shouldn't spoil the movie because it's a movie. I think a little bit of a meta commentary on how his character turns out from the beginning to the end of the film. I just think it was just such a great ride that I didn't remember since watching it back in the 90s.
The whole movie feels like a dream.
Yes.
That's the whole thing about this movie is you don't really know what's real or what is happening because it's such a surreal tale. Starting off with him in the insane asylum already is perfect because everything else after that, when they go backwards, you're second guessing, you're like, where? I don't understand. How did he end up here? And you know, he's a good Carpenter character because he's kind of a douchebag. He's like, you know, he gets really close to the girl. He's like, hey, baby, and she's very uncomfortable, you know. When they get to Hobbs End, which is just such a don't get me started on where I could go with that.
Knobs End?
Yeah, a whole bunch of shit. But like, everything becomes a dream right there. It's a dream you've had where you drive into a town and there's nobody there. Yeah. And then the only person that is there is the person you need at that exact moment. Somebody to answer the bell at the hotel room, and then everything else from there. Like you said, Lynch. It's very Lynch, except it actually tells you why the weirdness is happening, where Lynch just kind of lets the weirdness unfold, and it doesn't really have I mean, I love Lynch, but it's more about a meditation on things rather than telling a complete story. You know?
Sutter Kane.
Sutter Kane, yeah, it's such a Stephen King.
Yeah. But that's what's weird when they actually mention Stephen King being real in that uniuniverse.
Well, that's meta.
And Vigo the Carpathian.
Yeah, him trying to do some kind of a southern accent.
Well, right now I'm working on diesel most of my work, and I've done my farm work.
It just makes me wish we had got something more similar to this out of Carpenter in the 90s or in the 2000s.
Or in the early O's.
Yeah, because this does not look or feel like his 80s movies.
No.
But it's a really cool Carpenter movie. So it just makes me wish, you know, any of those other movies that he put out after that felt a little bit more like this.
Just over a year later, Village of the Damned, which, like Mouth of Madness, it kind of tells a complete story, and I believe it was a remake.
Yes.
Based off of a book, so it's not an original concept, but he's done that before. But yeah, Village of the Damned being the late, great Christopher Reeve's last film, I believe. I think it was his last movie, not before he died, but before the accident. And he was good in it, and I think Kirstie Alley was also at the time still somebody that people gave a fuck about. So she was in it too, and it's a creepy movie. It's a very creepy movie, and it's got the Carpenter creepiness to it. It's got the good creepy music to it. It's not his best movie. It's not as good as In the Mouth of Madness. But it's his second best movie in the 90s.
Yeah, pretty much. That's right.
Out of the 4 or 5 he did in the 90s.
Yeah, because I believe after that you get Escape from L.A.,
which is just, take it what for it is.
It's you know, it's got some fun moments, but it's not a great movie. And yes, you get into that era where the special effects just weren't good. Then I think you get vampires. And then you get...
Oh, I forgot about vampires with Thomas Ian Griffith and James Woods, right?
Well, James Woods. Thomas Ian Griffith is
Isn't he the
vampire.
main bad guy?
Is he?
Yeah.
Probably.
Terry Silver.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. And then Ghost of Mars, which I don't think either of us have
never saw.
seen.
To get some respect, we had to tear this motherfucker up.
And The Ward, which I didn't see.
Okay. I can speak briefly and cut me off after 20 seconds. The Ward stars Amber Heard. She's terrible in it.
Okay, you're cut off.
Okay.
Motherfuckers wanna get with me, lay with me, love with me.
But I just love that he is in his 70s and he's just rock starring. I don't know if you guys know this, but he's pretty much retired from filmmaking. I mean, he has been for a very long time, but these days he's getting richer than he ever made on movies because people fill up auditoriums and major arenas to see him do his scores live, and he has a full band. He tours like regular fucking hip-hop bands and pop bands do, and he makes a fortune off of it. It's almost impossible to get tickets to see Carpenter.
Like, I'd like to check that out. I knew he was doing it, but I didn't know. Like,
his tickets are gone.
I thought it was like a once in a while thing.
No, he doesn't.
Touring majorly.
He does it. He's become like a rock star. Imagine going to the Hollywood Bowl and just hearing Assault on Precinct 13, fucking Halloween. Okay, so I'd have to go number 5 would be Big Trouble in Little China, with Prince of Darkness almost making it, honorable mention. Number 4 is The Fog.
Go on.
Number 3 is Halloween.
Which seems surprising, but go.
Number 2 is Assault on Precinct 13.
Oh, wow. That's way up there for you.
Number 1 is The Thing.
The Thing. Starting at number 5 for me, I would say Escape from LA, just because I just love the way that movie looks. Number 4, In the Mouth of Madness, a new favorite of mine. Really feel like I could even move it farther up the list, but I feel like the top 3 for me are like kind of stone cold classics. Number 3 for me is Christine. Love that movie a ton. What a great movie. And then number 2 for me would be Halloween, because I still like, I'm a huge Michael Myers fan out of the kind of classic 80s masked boogeymen that you have. And my number 1 is The Thing, which I think was your number 1 as well. It's just like, that's like a perfect movie.
I don't think we're ever going to get another John Carpenter. Oh. And we should have come to terms with that 20 years ago. But yeah, it's kind of a bummer. Like, I wish he could just thrust one more out there, like, or at least collaborate on something. But if that's not, sometimes people lose interest in things, and he found a new thing.
I wish he would have directed maybe like the 3rd of this new series of Halloween or something, but I don't know.
I bet he's never seen any of them.
Yeah. But if there's any of the films we've talked about, Carpenter films that you haven't seen, all of his films are entertaining up to some of those late 90s films. Some of those aren't really that entertaining.
I would argue that The Ward is not entertaining.
Yeah. But like all those ones from the 80s are, and late 70s, including 76 is Assault on Precinct 13. I think that's one that a lot of people, even some Carpenter fans, self-professed, oh, I love Halloween, I love The Thing, I love Christine or whatever, have never really checked out Assault on Precinct 13. You should. It is a really great movie.
And a lot of people that sleep on it because they hear it's not a horror movie. It pretty much is.
Yeah.
It's a horror movie in a very different way, but when you watch it, you'll understand it. So check out all of John Carpenter's work if you haven't seen it already. John, it's the Halloween season. At least for us it is. Here at Cinema Gulp, we celebrate Halloween all month long.
Heck yeah, we're going to be dropping videos all month long. Check them all out. Give us likes, subscribes. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Check out our back catalog of First of the Best. We got some great ones in here.
And give us some suggestions of the next one. What other directors do you think are the best? And we'll talk about their first movie.
We drink your cinema.
I drink it up!